So, what if one of the most infamous names in recent history was secretly tied to the very origins of Bitcoin? Today, we're boiling down a massive 3-hour deep dive into a pretty explosive theory and giving you the essential 5-minute breakdown you need to know. So, where are we getting all this? Our source is episode 108 of Bitcoin Hard Talk, which streamed live on November 28th, 2025. It comes from Simon Dixon, who is a well-known financial analyst and a true Bitcoin OG. We're going to break down his central thesis so you can really get a grip on the key arguments.
All right, let's not waste any time. Let's get right to the heart of this thing, because it all kicks off with one, well, pretty unsettling question.
Now, you might think the goal was to somehow hack Bitcoin's code, right? But according to Dixon's analysis, that's not it at all. The money trail, it points to something way more insidious. A sophisticated play to poison the well, creating a permanent stain on Bitcoin's reputation from the inside. Okay, check out this timeline, because the sequence of events here is absolutely critical. In 2015, the original Bitcoin Foundation goes bust, and that creates a huge funding crisis. And at that exact moment, Epstein's network helps funnel money into the MIT Media Lab, which then funds the Digital Currency Initiative, the very group that stepped in to pay key Bitcoin developers. Dixon's point is, this wasn't a happy accident. It was a deliberate pipeline. Right, so just to be super clear, this was never about breaking the code. Dixon hammers this point home. The real play here was to create what he calls moral contamination, a permanent, damaging association that could be weaponized as leverage later on. Okay, so you've got this moral contamination, this potential leverage, but how is it actually being used today? Well, Dixon lays out what he calls a modern Wall Street playbook, a kind of financial kill shot that's happening right out in the open. The primary target here are what he calls corporate wrappers. Think of publicly traded companies like MicroStrategy that hold a ton of Bitcoin. And why them? Well, it's simple. You can't really attack the decentralized Bitcoin network directly, but you can absolutely go after a centralized public company. Dixon breaks down this kill shot into a 3-step attack. Step 1. You threaten to kick the company out of major stock indexes. That forces all those big passive funds to dump their shares. Step 2, you squeeze the market hard. JP Morgan, for example, slaps on a crazy 95% margin requirement, basically draining all the liquidity. And then for the final blow, step 3, you roll out your own safe bank product to catch all that capital that's now running for the exits. So the strategy here is it's crystal clear. It's not about killing the asset itself. It's about controlling where the money goes. It's like you poke a hole in someone else's boat while conveniently offering them a ticket on your cruise ship. This whole process, this neutralizing of threats, it leads to a really key concept in Dixon's whole theory. It's a strategy he calls vassalization. So what is vassalization? Think of it like, well, financial feudalism. It's this whole strategy to neutralize any real threat of independence. See, you don't have to destroy your enemy if you can just make them completely dependent on you to survive, right? You trap them with debt, with shareholder pressure, you own them. And this right here, this slide just perfectly highlights the core conflict. Bitcoin itself, it's playing what you'd call an infinite game. It has no CEO to fire, no quarterly earnings to miss. But a company like MicroStrategy, by its very nature, it's forced into a finite game. It's got to play by Wall Street's rules, debt, shareholders, and hitting those quarterly numbers. And if you want to see what that finite game looks like in cold, hard numbers, get this. We're talking about $700 million in annual financial obligations against only $54 million in cash. That is a massive structural gap. And what does it do? It forces them to go back, hat in hand, to the very system they're supposedly trying to disrupt, just to raise more money to stay afloat. So you've got the moral stain, the financial attacks, this vassalization. How does it all connect on a global stage? Well, this is where Dixon introduces this idea of a much bigger, kind of hidden power structure he calls the proof of weapons network. Now, this isn't some secret cabal in a smoky room. He describes it more as a decentralized system of power. It's a web of corporate, financial, and intelligence interests that are all interlocked. It's a network of mutual leverage that kind of works behind the scenes to make sure its own agenda moves forward, no matter who's technically in charge. And how does this network keep control? Dixon points to 3 main tools. First,
you groom and fund promising politicians early in their careers. Second, you just use overwhelming financial firepower through lobbying. And third, the ultimate insurance policy, you create leverage through blackmail operations. And when you look at it through that lens, the Epstein files, they're not just some gross scandal. They are a weapon. They're an active tool of leverage that can be pulled out and used to enforce discipline on anyone, a politician, a billionaire, a company that steps too far out of line. Okay, so this sounds like some massive global game of 40 chess, right? But what does any of this actually mean for the average person, for you? This is where Dixon brings it all home, arguing there's one move you can make that changes the entire game. If all these big corporate fights and all the political drama are really just distractions, part of the control system, what's the real battle we should be paying attention to? And at the end of the day, Dixon argues it all comes down to this choice, right here. On one side, you've got centralized control. You've got the ETFs, the corporate stocks, all the bank-issued products, basically playing their finite game by their rules. And on the other side, you have sovereign self-custody. Your keys, your Bitcoin, you just exit their game completely. So really, the bottom line of Dixon's entire 3-hour analysis is this simple quote: the only way to win is to not play their game at all. The real fight isn't about which ETF or which stock is better. It's about whether you're trapped in one of their products in the first place. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. In a world that seems to be built on hidden leverage, in a system designed to vassalize everyone and make them dependent, is holding your own keys the only true act of resistance left? Is it the only real path to financial sovereignty?